The massive screens in the Galactic Council's main chamber flashed with unusual readings. The ancient marble-like walls reflected the red warning lights, catching the attention of every council member present. At the center of the chamber, High Counselor Blue adjusted his environmental suit and leaned forward, his four eyes narrowing at the data streams. "Explain these readings again," he commanded, his translator converting his whistling speech into standard galactic basic. Dr. Gray stepped forward, her slender form moving gracefully in the low-gravity chamber. The research vessel's chief scientist held her data pad carefully as she addressed the council. "Distinguished members, our exploration vessel Star Seeker detected these anomalous readings from a previously overlooked solar system in the spiral arm of Sector 7. The chamber filled with murmurs as council members viewed the data on their personal screens. Dr. Gray continued, "At first, we thought our equipment was malfunctioning. The readings suggested conditions that should make life impossible." Captain Reed stood beside her, his military bearing evident even in the council chambers. "We confirmed the readings with 3 separate sensor arrays," he added. "What we found was unprecedented." The main screen shifted to show a blue-green planet, swirling with white clouds. It looked deceptively peaceful from orbit, but the data scrolling beside the image told a different story. The planet, which the native species calls Earth, exhibits extreme conditions by any galactic standard, Dr. Gray explained. The gravity is 1.3 times higher than any known inhabited world. The atmosphere contains corrosive oxygen at levels that would be toxic to most species. The temperature variations are extreme, ranging from freezing to burning within a single planetary rotation. High Counselor Blue's appendages twitched in disbelief. "And you're certain you detected life?" Captain Reed nodded. "Not just simple life, Counselor. An advanced civilization." The chamber erupted in shocked whistles and clicks. Dr. Gray quickly brought up more images. Cities sprawling across vast continents, vehicles moving through the air and on the ground, and most surprisingly, beings walking about in these impossible conditions without any protective gear. The dominant species, who call themselves humans, have evolved to not just survive, but thrive in these conditions, Dr. Gray said, her voice filled with scientific excitement. "They drink liquid water. Yes, the same substance that can dissolve standard environmental suits. They breathe oxygen as if it were normal atmospheric gas. Their bones and muscles have developed to support movement in crushing gravity." "Impossible," declared Council Member Green, his protective membrane rippling in agitation. "No species could evolve in such conditions." Captain Reed stepped forward again. "With respect, Council Member, we have hours of observational data. These humans don't just survive. They've built a civilization. They've even started preliminary space exploration, though they haven't yet achieved faster-than-light travel." Dr. Gray brought up more readings. "What's even more remarkable is their adaptability. This single species has settlements in regions ranging from frozen wastelands to scorching deserts. They've built cities in areas with regular seismic activity, near active volcanoes, and in zones that experience regular massive storm systems." The council chamber grew quiet as the implications sank in. High Counselor Blue finally broke the silence. "If what you're saying is true, if these humans have evolved under such conditions, what does that mean for their physical capabilities compared to galactic standard species?" Dr. Gray and Captain Reed exchanged glances. It was the captain who answered, choosing his words carefully. "Based on our preliminary assessments, an average human could accidentally cause serious harm to most galactic species simply by a friendly pat on the back. Their muscles, developed for Earth's gravity, would make them several times stronger than our strongest species in standard conditions." The council chamber remained silent for several long moments. Finally, High Counselor Blue spoke again, his voice grave. "Continue your observations, but maintain distance. We need to know more before we consider any direct contact. This discovery changes everything we thought we knew about planetary classification and species development." As Captain Reed and Dr. Gray left the chamber, They could hear the council breaking into heated debate behind them. They both knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was about to learn that what they considered normal was anything but, and the implications would reshape galactic society forever. The Starseeker hung in Earth's orbit like a silver needle against the black velvet of space. Inside the research vessel's observation deck, Dr. Gray stood with her face pressed against the reinforced viewing panel, watching lightning storms flash across the planet's surface. Another electrical discharge event, she noted into her recorder. The fourth one today, and the natives don't even seem to notice them. Captain Reed joined her at the window, his steps careful in the ship's artificial gravity, which they'd increased to help them adjust to Earth conditions. The atmospheric team is still trying to understand how humans survive these storms. The energy output would disable most of our shield systems. Everything about this planet defies our understanding of life, Dr. Gray said, turning to her workstation. Multiple screens showed different Earth environments. Frozen polar regions, dense rainforests, vast deserts, and deep oceans. Look at this footage from their information networks. The main screen displayed humans climbing frozen mountains, diving into deep oceans, and even jumping out of flying vehicles for entertainment. Each image made the research team flinch. They call this sports and recreation, Dr. Gray explained to the stunned crew gathering around her station. What would kill most species, they do for fun. The ship's environmental specialist, Dr. Brown, pulled up his latest readings. The variations in their ecosystem are mind-boggling. In one region, temperatures drop below freezing. A few thousand kilometers away, they soar high enough to cook most carbon-based life forms. And humans have built cities in both places. Speaking of cities, Captain Reed said, show them what we found in their earthquake zones. Dr. Gray nodded and changed the display. They build massive structures in areas with regular seismic activity. When the ground shakes and buildings fall, they don't abandon these regions. They rebuild, making the structures stronger each time. The crew watched in amazement as time-lapse footage showed a city rebuilding after a major earthquake. Where most species would have declared the region uninhabitable, humans simply constructed better buildings. But here's what really interests me, Dr. Gray continued, switching to biological scans. Their cellular structure. Humans are constantly repairing themselves. Their bodies deal with radiation damage from their sun, fight off thousands of microscopic organisms, and heal from injuries that would be fatal to most species. Dr. Brown pulled up a comparison chart. Their bones are incredibly dense, evolved to support their muscles under Earth's gravity. In standard galactic conditions, they'd be able to lift several times their body weight without mechanical assistance. What about their young? Asked one of the junior researchers. Surely they protect them in special facilities. Dr. Gray shook her head and showed new footage. Human children play in conditions we consider dangerous. They climb trees, fall down, get back up, and continue playing. Their learning process involves constant physical risk by our standards. Captain Reed studied the images thoughtfully. We need to understand their psychology too. Living in these conditions must have shaped their entire way of thinking. Already working on it, Dr. Gray said, bringing up cultural data. Their entertainment, what they call movies and books, often involves facing and overcoming even worse conditions than they normally live in. They imagine and prepare for conditions that are deadly even by their standards. The crew fell silent, contemplating the implications. Finally, Captain Reed spoke. No wonder they survived all this time unknown to the galaxy. We've been looking for life in what we thought were habitable zones. Nobody thought to look in conditions that would kill most of our exploration teams. The question is, Dr. Gray said, looking back at the lightning-streaked planet below, how will the galaxy react when they learn that one of the most dangerous known planets in charted space has produced a spacefaring civilization? A species that considers our normal environments to be gentle and soft. As if in response, another lightning bolt lit up Earth's atmosphere. illuminating the clouds in a brilliant display of power that made several crew members step back from the window. But Dr. Gray leaned closer, fascinated by the raw energy of this impossible world that humans called home. "We're going to need to rethink everything we know about biological adaptation," she whispered. Everything. The Grand Scientific Academy's main hall had never been so full. Scientists from across the galaxy crowded the ancient amphitheater, their environmental suits creating a rainbow of colors under the soft lighting. The excitement in the room was almost visible as Dr. Gray prepared to present her team's findings about Earth. She stood at the podium, taking a deep breath of her carefully filtered air. Captain Reed gave her an encouraging nod from his seat in the front row. "Respected colleagues," she began, her voice steady. "What I'm about to share will challenge everything we believe about planetary habitability and species evolution." The main screen behind her lit up with Earth's image. This is not just another life-bearing world. This is a planet that breaks every rule we thought we knew about life. She brought up a comparison chart. Our standard colonial worlds have gravity at 0.3 to 0.5 of Earth's pull. Our strongest construction materials barely hold together under Earth's gravity. Yet humans build towers that stretch hundreds of meters into the sky. Murmurs spread through the audience as the numbers appeared on screen. Dr. Gray continued, "Their bones would be classified as natural armor by our standards. Their muscles, evolved to work against Earth's gravity, would let them throw our heaviest military robots like toys in standard gravity." One of the senior scientists stood up. "Surely they must have some weaknesses. Such strong gravity must limit their mobility." Dr. Gray smiled and played a video. The audience gasped as they watched humans running marathons, performing acrobatics, and climbing sheer cliff faces. They don't just move in their gravity. They dance in it. And that's not even the most surprising part. She switched to atmospheric data. Their air would be considered toxic by our standards. The oxygen levels alone would corrode most of our equipment. Yet humans breathe it from birth, using it to power their high-speed metabolism. Captain Reed stood up to add his perspective. "Think about this. Their children play in conditions that would require our military to wear full environmental protection suits. They swim in water, a universal solvent that can dissolve some of our strongest materials." The Academy erupted in shocked discussions. Dr. Gray waited for the noise to settle before delivering her next revelation. But here's what truly sets Earth apart: its extreme environmental variations. She displayed a global map. These red zones show active volcanic regions. The blue ones are areas that regularly freeze. The yellow marks show where huge storms form. And the green? Those are zones where all of these conditions might occur in a single planetary cycle. She paused, letting that sink in. Humans don't just survive in these zones. They'd build cities there. When disasters strike, they'd rebuild. Where we see uninhabitable danger zones, they see opportunities for what they call beachfront property or ski resorts. The lead academician rose slowly from his seat. "Dr. Gray, are you suggesting that what we consider normal planetary conditions?" "Yes," she finished for him. "What we consider normal, safe conditions would be like living in a protective bubble to humans. Our colony worlds, they would find them boring. Our safety protocols, they would consider them unnecessarily restrictive." She brought up one final image, a human child playing in the rain while lightning flashed in the background. This is what they consider a normal childhood experience. Their young learn to navigate dangers that would kill most of our adult population. The silence in the hall was absolute. Dr. Gray looked across the sea of shocked faces and delivered her conclusion. "We need to completely rewrite our understanding of species development. Earth isn't just a death world. It's a forge that has created something we never thought possible. A species that thrives on challenges that would destroy most life as we know it." As the implications sank in, one young scientist asked the question everyone was thinking. How do we establish diplomatic relations with a species that considers our normal environments to be essentially padded safety rooms? Dr. Gray glanced at Captain Reed before answering. "Very carefully," she said, "and with a lot of reinforced furniture." Ambassador White stood nervously in the reinforced diplomatic chamber, watching through the thick viewing window as the human delegation approached. Despite weeks of preparation and countless simulations, nothing had truly prepared him for this moment. "Final safety checks," he called out to his team. The diplomatic suite had been specially constructed to protect the alien delegation. Heavy-duty gravity regulators hummed as they maintained what humans called microgravity conditions. The air mixture had been carefully filtered to remove most of the corrosive oxygen. Dr. Gray stood beside him, monitoring the environmental readings. "Remember, no sudden movements. Their reflexes are much faster than ours in these conditions." The human delegation entered the outer chamber. There were 5 of them, walking casually in what the aliens considered brutal gravity. They wore what they called business suits. No environmental protection, no gravity assists, not even basic radiation shielding. "By the stars," whispered one of the junior diplomats, "they really do just walk around in these conditions." The humans reached the conference room's sealed doors. Ambassador White took a deep breath of his filtered air and pressed the communication button. "Welcome, representatives of Earth. We are honored to meet you." The human leader smiled, a gesture that unfortunately displayed their impressive dental structure, causing several alien diplomats to step back. "The honor is ours," she said, "though I must say your environmental requirements are quite fascinating to us." As the humans entered through the decontamination chamber, one of the alien diplomats accidentally brushed against the gravity control panel. The artificial gravity flickered for just a moment. The effect was immediate and terrifying. 3 alien diplomats suffered immediate bone stress fractures from the brief gravity spike. Another 2 collapsed as their support structures failed. The protective membrane of Council Member Green ruptured under the strain. But the humans moved instantly to help. Their quick reactions and incredible strength, meant to be merely theoretical until now, became terrifyingly real. One human caught 2 falling alien diplomats before they hit the ground. Another reached the gravity control panel in what seemed like a single bound, stabilizing the system. The human leader herself somehow moved across the room fast enough to support Ambassador White before his legs gave out. "Don't move," the human leader said gently, her grip carefully controlled but still frighteningly strong. "Your bone structure seems compromised. We have medical training for low-gravity species." Dr. Gray watched in professional fascination even as she called for emergency medical teams. The humans moved through the room with impossible speed and precision, managing to be both incredibly strong and surprisingly gentle. "This is why we suggested a virtual meeting first," Dr. Gray muttered to Ambassador White, as human medical experts worked alongside alien doctors to treat the injured. In the chaos, Council Member Green's translator malfunctioned, and he began speaking in his native tongue. A series of high-pitched whistles that humans would later learn indicated extreme distress. To everyone's surprise, the human medical officer responded with a similar whistle. "Basic atmospheric vibration manipulation," she explained to the shocked aliens. "We noticed your communication patterns and thought it might be useful to learn the basics." Ambassador White, now secured in a medical pod, realized with growing alarm that humans hadn't just survived their Deathworld. They had mastered skills that most species considered impossible, just in case they might be useful. "We should postpone the formal diplomatic meetings," the human leader suggested, still supporting another injured alien with seemingly no effort. "Perhaps we should focus on understanding each other's physical limitations first." Dr. Gray nodded in agreement, noting how the humans had instinctively adjusted their movements to account for the aliens' fragility. "They're not just strong," she whispered to Ambassador White. "They're strong enough to be gentle. That's perhaps the most terrifying thing of all." As the medical teams worked, the human leader engaged in casual conversation with the remaining alien diplomats, discussing the technical specifications of their gravity control systems, as if the incident had been a minor inconvenience rather than a near-catastrophic diplomatic disaster. "Just a normal day on Earth. Really," she said with another one of those teeth-baring smiles. "You should see what happens when we have equipment malfunctions in our own orbital stations." The alien diplomats tried very hard not to think about that. Commander Stone stood before the Galactic Defense Council, his holographic presentation showing the aftermath of the diplomatic incident. The council chamber was even more heavily fortified than usual, with triple-layered environmental shields protecting each member. "Distinguished council members," he began, "the diplomatic incident has forced us to reconsider our entire defensive strategy. What we witnessed wasn't just a display of physical strength. It was a demonstration of capabilities we had previously considered impossible." He played the footage from the diplomatic chamber. The council members watched again as humans moved with incredible speed to save their alien counterparts. "Notice the reaction time," Commander Stone pointed out. "In the quarter-second it took our gravity systems to fluctuate, the humans had already assessed the situation and begun responding. Their neural processing speed exceeds our fastest combat computers." High Counselor Blue leaned forward. "Are you suggesting they pose a military threat?" "I'm suggesting we need to completely redefine what we consider a threat." Commander Stone brought up new data. "Look at their military training exercises." The screen showed human soldiers running obstacle courses, carrying heavy equipment, and performing combat maneuvers. What you're seeing isn't enhanced footage. These are their basic training requirements. Every human soldier can do this. The council watched in silence as the presentation continued. Commander Stone highlighted key points. "They train in environments we classify as death zones. Their standard equipment would crush our strongest soldiers. Their hand-to-hand combat techniques assume gravity levels that would break our bones. Surely their weapons must be primitive, given their harsh conditions," one council member suggested hopefully. Commander Stone shook his head. "Their weapons are designed to function in conditions that would destroy our most robust military hardware. They test their equipment in dust storms, underwater, and in freezing conditions. They expect their weapons to work everywhere because their soldiers go everywhere." He brought up a comparison chart. "A human soldier in standard gravity could throw our heaviest portable weapons like toys. Their bones are practically armor-plated by our standards. And this is before we consider their psychological advantages." "Psychological advantages?" High Counselor Blue asked. "Their entire species evolved expecting things to try to kill them," Commander Stone explained. "Where we see insurmountable obstacles, they see Tuesday. Their entertainment involves deliberately seeking out dangerous situations. Their children play games that would qualify as survival training on our worlds." Dr. Gray, who had been invited to provide scientific context, stepped forward. "They have a concept called adrenaline junkies, individuals who deliberately seek out life-threatening situations for entertainment. On their planet, this is considered a hobby." The council chamber filled with nervous murmurs. Commander Stone continued, "But here's what's really interesting. Their response to the diplomatic incident shows something crucial. They could have easily crushed our diplomats by accident. Instead, they showed incredible restraint and control." He played the footage again, this time highlighting the careful way the humans handled the injured aliens. "They're not just strong. They've mastered their strength. They don't just survive in deadly conditions. They've learned to thrive in them while protecting weaker species." "What are you suggesting?" High Counselor Blue asked. "I'm suggesting we need to rethink everything," Commander Stone replied. "Our current military doctrine assumes that harsh conditions limit a species' development. Humans prove the opposite. Their harsh world made them stronger, faster, and more adaptable than we thought possible." He paused, letting his next words sink in. "But most importantly, they've developed something we never expected from a Deathworld species: compassion. They're strong enough to destroy us by accident, yet careful enough to help us without causing harm. That combination makes them not just powerful, but truly formidable." The council chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. They weren't just dealing with survivors of a death world. They were facing a species that had mastered both power and restraint, whose very definition of normal rewrote the rules of what was possible. So, Commander Stone concluded, the question isn't whether they're a threat. The question is, how do we build a relationship with a species that could accidentally conquer the galaxy, but chooses not to? Dr. Gray sat in the Grand Gallery of Galactic Arts, surrounded by confused alien cultural experts. On the massive display screens around them, examples of human art and entertainment played continuously. The aliens watched with a mixture of horror and fascination. "You mean to tell me," Professor Black said, his protective membrane rippling with emotion, "that this mountain climbing is something they do for enjoyment?" "Not just enjoyment," Dr. Gray explained, pointing to different screens. "Look at their stories, their songs, their art. Everything about human culture reflects their relationship with challenge and danger." The screens showed humans skiing down steep mountains, surfing enormous waves, and racing vehicles at high speeds. Another display showed their movies, stories of survival against impossible odds, tales of exploration in deadly conditions, and adventures in what they considered mild peril. Their most popular entertainment often involved situations that would be lethal to most species, Dr. Gray continued. "They call these action movies and adventure sports." A cultural analyst raised her appendage. "But surely their art must show some appreciation for safety and comfort." Dr. Gray brought up examples of human literature. Even their peaceful stories often center around overcoming challenges. They have a saying, "No conflict, no story." Their very concept of entertainment requires some form of struggle. The screens shifted to show human children's entertainment. The aliens watched in shock as animated characters survived falls, explosions, and various dangers that would kill most adult galactic citizens. "They show this to their young?" Professor Black asked incredulously. "Their children's stories often involve facing and overcoming fears," Dr. Gray explained. "From an early age, they're taught that challenges are opportunities for growth. What we see as deadly danger, they view as character-building experiences." She brought up more examples. Human music with its powerful rhythms that would damage most alien auditory systems, dance moves that required incredible strength and balance, and art installations that challenged environmental conditions. Even their concept of beauty is shaped by their Deathworld origins, Dr. Gray said, displaying images of human architecture. "Look at these buildings. They don't just survive their environment, they celebrate it. They build glass towers in earthquake zones, floating cities in storm-prone areas, and underground complexes in volcanic regions." Professor Black studied the images carefully. "It's as if they see their planet's deadly conditions as inspiration rather than obstacles." "Exactly," Dr. Gray said excitedly. "And this extends to their language too. Let me show you their metaphors." She displayed common human phrases: "Weather the storm," "Fight fire with fire," "Climb that mountain," "Take the plunge." Their language is filled with references to facing dangerous conditions. They use these phrases to encourage each other in everyday situations. What we see as survival scenarios, they see as motivational examples. The cultural experts murmured among themselves as they processed this information. One of them brought up an interesting point. Their art suggests they're aware of their unique nature. "Look at these superhero stories. Beings with extraordinary strength helping weaker beings." Dr. Gray nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, their fiction often explores themes of power and responsibility. Despite evolving in lethal conditions, they've developed a strong cultural emphasis on protecting those weaker than themselves." She brought up one final display, a collection of human scientific and exploration initiatives. And here's the most fascinating part. They're not content with just surviving their deadly world. They constantly push boundaries, explore new territories, and seek out fresh challenges. Professor Black watched the screens thoughtfully. So their culture isn't just shaped by their death world. It actively embraces it. Every challenge their world presents, they turn into an opportunity for art, sport, or advancement. And that, Dr. Gray concluded, might be their most remarkable adaptation of all. They don't just survive in conditions we find terrifying. They find joy, beauty, and inspiration in them. Perhaps that's why they're able to handle their power so responsibly. They've made facing challenges into an art form. 1 year after first contact, the Galactic Council gathered for a historic session. The chamber looked very different now. Reinforced gravity platforms had been installed, the air filtration systems had been upgraded, and every piece of furniture was built to withstand what the Council now called Earth Standard conditions. High Counselor Blue stood at the central podium, addressing the largest gathering of species in galactic history. Behind him, a human delegation waited calmly, their mere presence still causing nervous ripples through the crowd. Today marks a new chapter in galactic history, Blue announced. Earth has been officially classified as a Class 13 Deathworld, the highest classification ever assigned to an inhabited planet. But more importantly, we've learned that our understanding of normal was far too narrow. Dr. Gray, now the head of interspecies relations, stepped forward to present the annual report. The human impact on galactic society has exceeded all expectations, she began. Their unique perspective has helped solve problems that plagued us for centuries. The main screen displayed various images, human engineers reinforcing alien structures with Earth-inspired designs, human disaster response teams helping evacuate colonies during environmental emergencies, and human medical experts developing new treatment methods based on their species' incredible healing abilities. Their experience with extreme conditions has proven invaluable, Dr. Gray continued. When the mining colony on Zeta 6 faced catastrophic equipment failure, human engineers didn't just fix the problem. They improved the design based on their experience with volcanic conditions on Earth. Commander Stone added his own report. The joint military exercises have been enlightening. Human survival training has revolutionized our emergency protocols. Their ability to function in almost any environment has helped us develop new rescue and recovery strategies. The screen showed footage of human instructors teaching alien species how to handle various emergency situations. Where once there had been fear of human strength, now there was respect for their control and patience. But perhaps most remarkable, Dr. Gray said, is how they've changed our approach to problem solving. Their favorite phrase, challenging but not impossible, has become a galactic standard. Ambassador White, who had finally recovered from his injuries during the first contact incident, shared his perspective. We feared their strength would make them conquerors. Instead, they've become our most dedicated protectors. When the solar flares threatened the colonies in the Rigel sector, human ships were the first to respond, working in conditions that would kill most species. The human delegation's leader stepped forward, moving carefully on the reinforced platform. We never saw ourselves as superior, she said simply. On Earth, everything is trying to kill you. The weather, the animals, even the plants. We learned early that survival depends on working together. Now we just have more people to work with. High Counselor Blue raised all 4 of his arms for silence. The classification of Earth as a death world isn't just about its conditions. It's about how those conditions created a species that turns obstacles into opportunities, that finds strength in adversity, and that uses its power to protect rather than dominate. He turned to face the assembled species. We've had to rewrite every book, reconsider every limit we thought we knew. But most importantly, we've learned that what makes a species truly advanced isn't their technology or their strength. It's how they use their capabilities to help others. The human leader smiled, a gesture that no longer caused panic in the chamber. We have a saying on Earth, a smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. We're just happy to help others navigate rough waters. As the chamber erupted in appreciative sounds from dozens of species, Dr. Gray made her final note in the official record. The discovery of Earth as a death world didn't just change our understanding of planetary classification. It changed our understanding of what's possible. And perhaps that's the greatest gift these Deathworld humans have given us. The knowledge that in the face of any challenge, there's always hope. After all, if life can thrive on Earth, it can thrive anywhere. We just need the right perspective, and maybe a few humans to show us how.